Buenas noches and welcome to Power in Motion, Mujeres Shaping the Future of Travel. I am Vanessa Fondeur and I'm the founder of Latino World Travelers. I'll be moderating tonight's conversation and I'm very excited because it's International Women's Month and this month is often framed as a celebration and celebration definitely matters, but tonight is about going a little bit deeper. So we are going to talk about influence, we're going to talk about power, we're going to talk about voice, and we're going to talk about, travel is one of the most powerful industries in the world. It not only shapes economies, but it shapes culture, it shapes perception as well, and it shapes opportunity. And yet, we rarely pause to ask who is shaping it. So I'm excited for this panel. Because power does not live in this one place only. It lives in the stories that we tell, and we're going to find out why. It lives in the technologies that we built. It lives in the institutions that are moved by millions of people across many different borders. And it lives in the decisions that are made behind closed doors. It lives in who gets the visibility, which is something that I try to empower people to do to get more visibility, and who gets the access as well. So tonight we are exploring how power moves across storytelling, innovation, and institutional leadership. And each one of our speakers represents a different lane of industry, of influence. And together we will explore what it takes, not just to be visible in this industry, but to shape it as well. So I invite you to listen to patterns, intersections, or systems because the future of travel is not just accidental. We are building it in real time, like each one of us, contribuyendo nuestro granito de arena. That's how we are building it. So with that foundation in place, I would love to ground us with the voices shaping today's conversation. So rather than me reading formal bios, I'm just going to ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves briefly and share what facet of travel do you influence and how do you influence? And Jen, let's start with you.
Hello, everybody. I'm so happy to be here and to see so many familiar and new faces. Thank you, Vanessa, for putting on this event. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jen Ruiz from Jen on a Jet Plane. I am a lawyer turned full-time travel writer, content creator, and author. I have written 6 books with my seventh coming out this June. I'm signed to Blackstone Publishing, so I can definitely help anybody who wants to speak about getting a traditional book deal or self-publishing as well. I've done both routes. I've also been the editor for Lonely Planet's Central America guidebooks and one of the authors of the Foder's Travel Guidebook to Puerto Rico. My writing has been featured in National Geographic, Forbes, the Washington Post. So if you want to talk about how to be a published travel writer, I can also help with that as well. But I'm just so excited to be here and to share everything I know about this lane of media and travel and doing it from a freelancer creative point of view.
Beautiful. Now let's go with Vanessa, mi tocaya.
Thank you so much, Vanessa, and hi everyone. I'm so excited to see some names that I already recognize and some new ones. Really, really honored to be on this room with all of you. I'm Vanessa. I'm in San Francisco, originally, Mexican background. I am the founder of Greether. We are a travel tech platform that helps women travel safer around the world. But before that, I'm a traveler, I'm a flamenco dancer, I'm a cat mom. I think as women, we're super multifaceted. And so I always like to, like also say the other things that people don't usually see of me. I am a huge advocate for empowering women in all shapes and form through travel. And we do this in many different ways. Every time that someone is using our services, we're actually generating income for women. And I've received a lot of honors and awards by doing this work that we have put a mission on. And I also represent the Latinas in technology, which it's its own animal, you know, and completely I could talk about that the advantages and the disadvantages of that come with that. But you know, today being one of the celebrations that we're doing on Women's History Month, it's about like owning that space. And even if you're the underdog, there's still like an edge for you, that you can take up on that room. And really excited to talk more about this.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Juanita, let's go with you now.
Gracias. Buenas noches, tardes, días, depending on where you all are. I saw somebody on the other side of the pond join, so thank you for joining us. My name is Juanita Velez. I currently am the DEI and Social Impact Senior Manager for Delta Airlines. My specific role is responsible for bringing kind of the humanity to travel, right? So how do we leverage that big global Delta brand to drive a human and cultural sensitive brand experience for those who use our brand, but also how do we shape who belongs, who is considered, how global movements impact change from a world perspective. So that's what my current job is focused on. However, I've actually built a career prior to this role in international marketing. So a lot of the way that I craft and draft a lot of our belonging, inclusion, social impact, equity work really comes from my brand and marketing background. Starting out in international marketing at UPS, I was there for a couple of years. And then coming over to Atlanta to build our international social media presence with some of those JV partners that you might recognize, like Korean Air, Aeromexico, Gol in Brazil. It's not a partner anymore. Latam, WestJet in Canada, Virgin. I mean, all of these alliances that we have around the world. So I have a unique perspective given my background is external facing, and now the work that I do is really driven from the inside. But outside of what I do at Delta and how I've kind of built a career as a Latina in corporate, because that is part of my background, I also teach a venture capital course at Emory University here in Atlanta. So it's a student-led venture capital firm that is funded by the Gozueta Foundation, and it focuses on deploying funds to Black, Latinx, and Indigenous-owned businesses. That you might think, like, how does that come together? And it's because of a lot of the work that I've done in the community. And really, it started when I didn't have a title. I didn't have, substantive credibility, but I did have that kind of incessant need to give back. And there was just a lot of opportunity here in Atlanta. We have the fastest growing demographic are young Latinos in the state of Georgia. So I created an organization called HYPE, Hispanic Young Professionals and Entrepreneurs, with a mission to build the future business leaders of Georgia. So it's all really come full circle for me, and I'm really excited to be here tonight with you all.
Fantastic. You can already see and hear how different yet interconnected all of these lanes are. And I'm so excited for today's conversation. So let's get started with our first question. This is a big picture kind of question. When you think about power in the travel industry today, what does it actually look like from where you sit? Like, where do you see the real impact of your work showing up? And anyone can start.
I can start this. I think specifically in the seat that I'm in, both in the work that I drive from a DEI perspective and social impact. When I think about power in the travel industry, I think specifically around access. As an immigrant from Colombia, I've been on a plane. That was my immigrant experience and journey. And so the airplane and the representation of travel going back to my home, it has this nostalgic yet inaccessible experience based on how my upbringing was. So I truly think travel has the power to connect people to opportunity and access, whether that be economic opportunity, cultural understanding, education, even just inspiration. I see some of the content creators on the call today. You can't deny that when you're in a completely different country, looking at all of these surroundings and taking in all this new information and ways of living, it doesn't inspire you. I think the challenge is that historically not everyone has had equal access to those experiences or even to those careers in the aviation industry. I never thought I would work at an airline. I never even thought I would be at an airline even after being at UPS and having so much close proximity to Delta because both are headquartered here in Atlanta. So I don't take that lightly, the position of power and privilege that I have as a Latina here in this industry. And I think from my perspective at Delta, power also means scale. It means responsibility, right? We're constantly connecting people to more than 3 destinations around the world. And it's important to know that the decisions that we're making, everything from who we partner with to the stories that we amplify on our marketing channels or in the content that you see online, to how we invest in communities, all of that has ripple effects, whether positive or negative. So for me personally, it's important to know that, being in aviation and having a career path in aviation, I have some specific power and privilege to open doors. Especially for me, it focusing on young Latinas and knowing that, not just seeing themselves as travelers and traveling the world, but also leading those industries that are connected to this industry, because there is so much opportunity within the aviation and its tentacles that surrounds it.
I'll jump in. That was beautifully put, Juanita. And I think a lot of it resonates with me. I when you asked the question, Vanessa, I thought of it in 2 parts. So one is me as the leader of a company, and then also what we do with the power of what our Greether does, right? As a tool for travelers. And every March, I write a letter that goes to all of our, members, that comes from my email and during March. And this March, I think we've all been feeling heavy about like how the world is right now, and like it's just that reality. And when you work in travel and you're seeing so much conflict happening in the world, it takes a toll on you, it should at least, I think, if you are a good leader and a kind human. But what I was thinking a lot about this year as I was writing is the privilege that I have, and that we have right now, all of us, to be live on this room, to be able to talk about travel and like innovation, and the power that I have now as a leader in the travel industry. And that is a huge responsibility too, right? And it's one that I don't take lightly, and I think comes down to our messaging. What are we saying to the young generations? What are we saying to the women today, and to the women who maybe are older than me too? Something that I was thinking, like in this 2-part notion, is like what we do with the brand itself with Greether is like, how do we make sure that all types of women travelers feel represented? And when I started Greether, I first imagined that I would be the main user, right? I was like, imagine Vanessa, myself as the persona. And then quickly we started getting travelers who are in their 80s traveling solo. And I was like, of course they are. Why wouldn't they? But sometimes we get women who have messaged us and be like, can I use Greether if I'm in my 70s? And then so I hate that they're asking that question, because it's partially our fault, because we need to make sure that they feel represented in every image and every messaging. So we do a lot of active steps to like include them, and diversity and people with accessibility needs as well. And how can we improve in that? So I think the power comes in being at a space where I can make decisions in where I can improve the travel industry, and for women and for people that have a harder time traveling, people of color, people, of different backgrounds. And I think that us that are in the travel industry, we have this huge responsibility to take, like how can we improve things? Even if we're not at the top, we're still influencing, what people are buying, where people are going to. And also it comes down to destinations that we're advertising, right? Like how can we try to like move from Italy being our most booked country to like maybe drive bookings in Estonia or in Ecuador, in places where they need tourism too. They're fantastic destinations. So it comes down to like those decisions. And I think that's where my power lies in.
Yeah, I think those are great answers. And I would echo that. I think the power lies in being the person that makes a decision as to what gets seen. Even with Delta, I know a few years back they had sent me a package where they had Mexican made products and like a local artist that they had that were designing these. And so that was a conscious decision made by a global brand to include and highlight these local artisans. So you have the power when you're in the decision making seat. I would say the same goes for the editors that decide who they commission. When I was doing the Lonely Planet commissioning, I was very conscious of wanting to know, because I think a complaint a lot of people hear a lot is it's the same people that are writing these guidebooks, or it's somebody who isn't even from the area that's writing the guidebooks. And so understanding why that it works that way behind the scenes and the limited pool of applicants that they're already picking from, and then trying to, while I'm in that position, open the door for others to at least get in, write a smaller, an essay versus a chapter, and be now in the pool for consideration for future assignments. So I think that there's a lot of power to be said for the people who greenlight others. Same things, people who get TV shows are done because somebody's there advocating for them. And so those people have power. Same thing, agents have powers to get you a book deal. And that's why there's so little representation of the Latino community in the publishing world, because so many people need to get through those gatekeepers first. And they don't have those connections innately. They don't have referrals to them. They don't know where to go to get them, which is why I think that in this world, in the media and travel world, networking is power. Who you know is power. Showing up to events like this, connecting with them afterwards, going to meetups, being part of the Latino World Travelers community. That's really important because it's going to take you from, fighting the masses in a mass submission inbox where nobody knows who you are, to actually having those personal connections. So I know what we do is a lot, digital based. But I think that there's still so much to be said for actual connection, actual networking, and it's what puts you ahead. And I've had tourism boards tell me this, like we have so many influencers that we work with, and then of that we have the pool of people that we actually know, and then we have the pool of people that we like know and want to work with, right? And so that's how you get yourself up to actually be considered, is by making those connections. So for me, attending conferences, going to events, being part of professional organizations have all helped put me in a position to be seen and hopefully have more access to that, power structure.
Thank you so much for sharing, Jen. I actually want to take this opportunity to lean in a bit on your answer, Vanessa. We all recognize like today's environment feels a little threatening for so many Latinos, especially in the travel space. And many don't feel comfortable leaving their own front doors, right? What are some ways to take back power in the travel industry given the current political landscape and its impact in our community? And Jen, you shared some of that already. So from your lens, Juanita or Vanessa, what is some ways to take that power back?
Um, One of them, I think for us, what we've been seeing is like we have greeters in over 130 countries. And a lot of them are like really close to our heart. Like you guys, like I know their names, like I know a lot of their names. It's crazy how much storage your brain can take. But so you guys remember like 2 weekends ago when like the Dubai and like what was happening in Dubai and still happening. We messaged our greeters in Dubai and we were like, how are you doing okay? Like, what's going on? Like, we were trying to get information from them instead, you know, than like what the news says. And what they are saying is completely different to what we are being told. So I think it's really hard to filter right now, like our content, right? Like you don't know who's behind it, you don't know like whose GPT wrote it, what the intention behind it. So like I think right now it is really important to make sure you're verifying your sources as much as possible and to limit of course, it's important for us to know what's happening in the world, like what, especially if you have a travel business, like you need to know what's going on. Like we've started getting cancellations because people had like in places where there's not even conflict, but because they had flights from Qatar Airlines going to Rome and their flight got canceled. So we're like, oh gosh, we have to navigate this. And it's not the end of the world, right? But at the same time, like, how can we also, on our personal lives, filter as much as possible to protect our mental health? I found this amazing picture for all of you guys here, on Instagram where you can like decline all politics, and it's changed my algorithm completely. I don't even know how I found it, but like I clicked on it, and it has really helped my mental health, and it's not that I don't want to know what's going on, but like I think there's enough information that you can like filter that is like relevant to you and what you're doing. And obviously with our Latino culture, it is hard and heartbreaking what's happening in the country. I don't even know how to answer that because like I am fearful of my parents who immigrated here. I'm fearful of my friends. Like I have a lot of like we all probably do, people who are worried about constantly. And just like stay close to each other, and like be extra kind as you can. And as Jen said, like tap into the community and like, Vanessa, I emailed her and she's like, hey, can you help me with this? And like it is in these moments of like togetherness that we can like show off more, like our strength. I don't know what else to say about this.
No, that's a great
Yeah.
answer, and thank you so much for being so vulnerable and sharing your experience and what you're hearing. Um, I want to ask Jen, I know you mentioned the children. How can we as a travel community teach that next generation to embrace those lessons and experiences that come with travel?
You said you're asking me?
Yes, yes.
Uh, I would say I think there's a lot of programs. So I always try to like share everything that I see, but I'm actually seeing a lot of student programs now. Even now, when you were talking, Vanessa, I had in my mind like, oh, verifying sources. There's a free webinar or like a whole seminar, virtual seminar this weekend for journalists on like free classes. And one of them is on verifying sources. And so immediately I was like, I should share that with people. So that's my first instinct is to try to connect people with as many opportunities, things that I see where you can have, these free resources. Even when you were talking about creators and politics, the News Creator Corps Fellowship that I was a part of last fall and that took a new cohort this spring. Their whole thing is about political creators, and they had people there trying to deal with how does this work? How can you get the documents that you need? All these important skills for creators. So I think training because we are just everybody's kind of like running wild. That's why you're like, I don't know who's ChatGPT wrote it. I don't know what is or isn't verified. So it's kind of the Wild West out here. And it has been for a while. Like legally, the online space has always kind of been like, well, buyer beware, right? Verify your own sources, figure it out. If you rely on Wikipedia, that's your fault. But I think now that we're seeing so much more like the generative, like people coming out and, as full AI people, right? So like we're gonna, I think, see more regulations perhaps develop around being online. And I think it doesn't hurt as a creator and a writer to have as many credentials, as many things in your arsenal as possible to show your legitimacy. So I would love to just keep sharing those opportunities and hope that we can continue to build more programs for people who are already in the industry and people who are new and coming into it so that they can do things the right way from the get-go.
Thank you so much for sharing. Um, Now I'm gonna move on to like how power moves. One thing that I see already emerging is that power in travel moves through different systems, whether it is media, technology, institutions, or even community, as I'm building one. So I would love to explore how that actually happens in practice. So maybe we can start with Juanita. Like you operate inside a global institution that moves millions of people every year. From your perspective, how does power actually work inside an organization of that scale? How does leadership translate into like measurable impact, whether it is in the workforce, culture, or in the customer experience, maybe?
Um, Influence is power, network is power. I think if you have a seat at the table, that is power. The way that these organizations whether it's in the aviation industry or not, take action is by having the right person in the right room vouch for that vendor or bring someone's company into the conversation or deploy the funds to the right business, or it literally is having a seat at the table. And there's a lot of systems that influence that. And I think from just a like pestle perspective, like a political, economic, social, technological, we are seeing that in its most transparent and clear way right now. If you don't understand that, then you aren't watching the news and you aren't getting that content in your feed, because for as hard as times are right now, I think there is a very clear transparency on where we're headed in the future, and you need to listen. And you can't, it's not time to say, I'm going to ignore this because it doesn't matter. No, it will impact you. And even to the point on like, regulations around AI, that is a really scary item for me as a single mom of a 4-year-old girl whom I know is going to be completely impacted in all of her facets of life by the things that are being built every second of every day. So it is important for you to know that like power is taken away from you when you are making the decision to stand to the side of things that are happening. Perhaps 20 to 30 years ago, you could not listen and, move on with your life, because all of the revolutions have sped up and accelerated with time. But I think this is the first time. I saw some statistic the other day that it took Facebook, like, I don't know, don't quote me, 2 years to get 1 million users, and it took ChatGPT like 2 months, right? So when you think about just the accelerated rate at which business is evolving and the impact that businesses have in your personal life, that is how power moves. So I would say you don't have to be a CEO or VP or someone with a lot of power to make influence and to drive change. For example, when Delta launched their Aeromexico JV campaign, joint venture campaign, I was on the marketing team, and I was responsible for our international social media presence. All of the funds were to promote the Aeromexico US routes outside Mexico point of sale, but they had zero budget deployed to US point of sale. So therefore, their mindset, the strategic alliances team and the people who thought this was a good idea said, okay, let's market these routes to all of the people that live in Mexico to use Aeromexico when flying transborder. Pero en ningún momento, at no time did they think like, hold on a second, this is the largest Latino population in the US. Like, we should probably target them US point of sale as well. And by the way, it's 2017, 2015, I don't remember when, and they're the top social media users, and they are they're flying to Mexico at higher rates than any other country and destination. So in that moment, I had an influence and a network through my community, outside of my role at Delta, where I was able to lean into some of those statistics and be able to build a business case and say, we should probably allocate some budget to social spend to do US point of sale marketing for the Aeromexico Delta route launch. And so we did. And from there, we had a whole campaign, and it included the Mexican soccer national team. It included content creators. We traveled around the world with content creators and the M&T team. Like, think about, and then from there, those content creators were able to amplify their brands. And now they work with some of our partners like Amex and T-Mobile and Starbucks. So and I wasn't, at the time I was just a manager. I even think I was a contractor. So I think you just have to be really strategic about, number one, staying connected to your community and the things that, are aligned to your purpose. And then number two, like, don't be afraid to bring up concepts that could drive revenue, whether it be in your business or whatever, because more than likely that hasn't been brought up. And that's an opportunity that will eventually set you up for success whenever your name comes up in a room for other partnerships or other launches or whatever the case may be.
Yes, and that is at that level. So I can only imagine, like from Jen and Vanessa's perspective as an entrepreneur yourselves, how do you bring your own seat to the power table? How maybe you can give us like a little bit of that.
So you guys have to understand that I decided to build a travel tech platform in 2021 when the world was completely banning travel with zero technical background. So it was like the worst idea in the world, right? But I didn't know anybody. Like I had no clue of what I was doing. I just had an idea. I had research, to Juanita's point, like this is my second company. So I learned a lot from my previous one. And then the first thing that I did was research. I started researching what I needed to do. And then I went and like looked up for opportunities for entrepreneurs that were as lost as I was. And I literally went maniac and I emailed anybody and everybody. I went and LinkedIn people and like I saw programs that where I didn't fit it because I was too early. I was like on idea stage and I would still email them and I'd be like, hey, like, but what about me? So I think you have to be your biggest advocate, as an entrepreneur, which is really hard as a Latina because like don't show off, don't be a presumida, all that stuff that like brings us down. And like it's really hard for me to talk about my accomplishments and like whenever I pitch, like that slide of like accomplishments is the one that I like go by fastest, because like that's how we're set up as Latinas, to be modest. But anyway, so what I had to do is just like fake it until I made it. And like I realized that a lot of it was connecting with the right person and applying to everything that I saw. Like I spent so much time at the beginning of Greether writing applications. I wish ChatGPT existed then because I spent so much time, and it showed up. Like we ended up getting incredible opportunities by like really just being bold. Um, I mean, Expedia invested in Greether. I've been in rooms invited by the United Nations, like, and it was because I took a chance on like, what I was building. And like I knew that I had no community behind me. Like even though I'm in San Francisco and like everybody else is like a founder and like everybody has a startup in San Francisco. You go to Starbucks and like 8 people in the line out of 10, they're founders. So you're not that unique, but at the same time, I didn't know anybody. I had no clue. So I had to build my network and I hustled. I hustled a lot to build this network and like to get in the rooms that I was getting no, 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 told no to and faced a lot of rejection. And I talk about this in almost every panel. So probably some people here who like know me, like they've heard me all the time talk about this, but I even have a binder on my email that says like rejections, so every time I will get a rejection or I get a no, I'm like, okay, I'll prove you wrong, so it's also like believing in yourself. It's not just like about who you're gonna like meet, or if you're not confident in what you're building, people they won't buy in, I think that also is like, like bringing visibility to like your vision and like being super strict about like where you're going. And I think that's helped tremendously on my end because I didn't know anybody, at all.
Now, Jen, from your perspective, how does storytelling translate into that real power and creating your own table?
I think one of the best parts of the work that I do now, and people always say, like, oh, a lot of people maybe assume I'm going back to law at some point or that this is like a fun, sabbatical thing that I'm doing. And I'm like, no, I really love what I do now because it's all the same skill sets of what I had in law, public speaking, oral advocacy, persuasive writing, anything of the sort. But now I do it what feels like for good, right? I think before I used to do it in such a controversial setting. I'd have to be adversarial all the time, going against people. And now I get to uplift people. I get to use my platform to showcase people that wouldn't otherwise be seen. And when you are somebody who has either access to these platforms as a writer, access to mass visibility as a content creator, because I've had content perform well across all these platforms. So if a video goes viral and now this shop is sold out or getting visitors from crossing state lines or starting a second location because of how popular they've been, like those have all been direct results that I've been able to help, like and show direct impact that you have on people that wouldn't otherwise be seen. And I think that's so rewarding. Same thing with a guidebook. Like once you put a business in a guidebook, they will be in that guidebook forever unless there's a reason to remove them, right? It'll be updated every new update that they have. But if it's still there, if the business still is performing well, you've now given them exposure to so many different people that are going there with the purpose of traveling and spending their money and are looking where to go and do that. And so you really have the power to uplift and take a small business and turn them into a profitable business. Nobody likes to be a best kept secret. I know we talk about like, saving these things and hiding them. I don't think any business or any entrepreneur wants to be hidden. Like they want to be well known, they want to be in demand. And so I think for us, our power is in being able to amplify and to actually drive tangible results, real revenue, real traffic to these people that need it and deserve it and wouldn't be seen otherwise.
That is like the nail right there. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, this question is for all of you because we almost stare at that power like in the face. So for each one of you, in 1 minute or less, what is one way you face power and get it on your side?
I think I really liked Vanessa's answer from before of both faking it till you make it and just continuing on past the failures. I think two of those two things, like resilience and grit, is one of the biggest determinations of success. And I wouldn't necessarily hold on to the rejections because I get woo-woo about my energy and I don't want the negative energy of the rejections. But I would get very diligent about continuing. If there's a goal that I want to get to, I really think until you get there, like it's not over. And so I think so many of us have faced rejections, have faced, as content creators, because it is such a saturated space, you can sometimes feel it's impossible for your stuff to be seen. It's impossible for your stuff to stand out. There's so many other people doing what you're doing already. It's impossible to get a freelance writing assignment. And then you do. Right. And then your video pops off. And then all of a sudden, all that hard work that you've been putting in actually, takes off. And now you have a back catalog of things that the people who are, finding you for the first time can go and delve into. So sometimes it takes a really long time for something to hit. And it can be really tough when you're in this atmosphere where all you're seeing is comparison and you're judging yourself by numbers and your performance on a digital space where you're, victim to the algorithm and you maybe has nothing to do with you. And so I think the biggest thing is really keep going, be aware that virality is not the end all be all. And it's really, as long as you're still consistently putting out value, as long as you're still feeling like you're doing what you're meant to be doing and you're in that right space. Flavia, who's in this call, all of a sudden her stuff has been taking off, her tour stuff. And she just was like, she's been at it. It's not like she started this yesterday, right? And she was like, oh, it's not working here. Let me switch to this new platform. And then on that platform, it takes off. So like, keep going. Like that really is it. And I know it can be so discouraging. I know it can feel like there's so many things against you, but really like just keep going. That is like 90% of the battle.
Yes, I love that, Jen. And yes, Flavia, so proud of you. And I think I was thinking something different to me, and especially as an entrepreneur, for all of you who are in this call, who are small business owners or like freelancers, imposter syndrome sucks, and we all have it. But there's ways to like work around it, and like really you can really like get some tricks down on your sleeve that you can use to like kind of beat it. But the other thing is, I think my secret power, if I can confess, is discipline. It's not even passion. It's not even, anything else. It's discipline, because as a entrepreneur, roller coaster. And one day you're feeling like at the top of the world, like everything's going smooth, and then you get hit by something, and then you get hit by another thing, and then you have to get payroll, and you have to file taxes and do all this boring stuff that you didn't sign up for, but you have to do. And like sometimes you don't feel like doing it. Literally, like there's days I'm like, oh, I have to lead this call right now. Like I have to make decisions, and like decision fatigue is insane. So, but if it wasn't because I'm disciplined and I grew up with a Mexican mom, so I thank her for that. I think that I wouldn't have gotten to where we are. And also ownership of like whenever we have a win, is my team's win. But when we have a failure, they're all me. I tell them like I say, like I face the rejection, I feel the failure, I face the mistakes, but whenever we win, they are the ones who made us win, because like I wouldn't be anywhere without my team right now. Like, and so those are the three powers I have.
Yeah, I love that you said that because even like life is a roller coaster and there are glimmers and then there are deaths and definitely as an immigrant and coming from a life that was very much fluctuating on all fronts, like social, economic, all the things. The resilience and the ability to pivot that I got gained from my parents is 100% the reason why I am where I am today. And whenever I feel like I'm losing my power, because there are moments, I mean, we all face those moments. We face them as women, we face them as Latinas, we face them as women in the travel industry. There's so many different places in which I can victimize some of the components of my life. And there are moments where I do feel like the power is being taken away. And I try really hard in those moments to remember my why and the purpose. My why used to be to make my parents' sacrifice worth it. Now that I have a daughter, my why is to have her see a thriving woman who is leading with fulfillment, right? And purpose. And that looks different. I mean, I don't want her just to see mi mamá la like corporate executive. I want her to see like mi mamá la que le gusta cocinar because she likes to cook, not because she has to. Mi mamá la que is at spin class, like trying as hard as possible, thinking she's beating everyone when in reality she's the slowest one. That one. Mi mamá that like takes me on a walk because she has to get her steps in, and I see her taking care of her health because she wants and needs that. I think all of these things are the way that I bring the power back, is by focusing on like what is it that fulfills me and grounds me to my innermost self with a capital S. And that sounds so yogi and like, but the truth is that it gets to a point where you really do have to take care of yourself. And because then what happens is you become so confident in the ability to uprise again when you're in those depths that this too shall pass. And so repetitively going through the hard moments makes you better and easier to like stand up again when they come, and you just have that, you're able to have that power back quicker.
Thank you so much for these very thoughtful answers. I'm like, every time you guys are speaking, I'm like, oh my God, I'm feeling so empowered. Now, let's bring it back to something that maybe many of our audience here is probably thinking. A lot of people today have visibility in the travel space, right? But visibility is not necessarily the same as power. And some people who have a lot of power are sometimes in the background. What does it actually take to move from visibility to influence, to real decision making power that can lead to like your very own movement or anything in the industry? So how do you move from visibility and influence to real decision making power? And anyone can take this.
Yeah, I think in the media space as a freelancer, being part of those professional organizations, so actually joining things where the other decision makers are and the organizations where you don't see people who look like you, it's important that you're there so that you are the person who has that seat at the table. You know, the travel and adventure show, Vanessa, that you just spoke at, they now have somebody that's assigning that who I believe is Hispanic. And so she's gotten more Hispanic representation now. And so being in those spaces, being part of those groups, connecting with those people, and then doing a good job when you show up so that they'll repeat it and hopefully invite more people in the future. I think that that's how you go from just being seen and having the numbers to actually having influence, power, decision making ability, and the ability to open the door for the people who come after you as well. So being in those rooms, it's not enough to just do. That's why I don't support creators. I don't, not that I don't support it, but I don't encourage it because it's, if you work in your own silo, it becomes so much harder. Everything becomes so much harder. And that's why so many creators sometimes will have a million followers and they still haven't monetized, right? And they still haven't built a legitimate business. I've been doing this full time for 8 years. And so one of the real important things is that I am part of this community. Like I am part of all, I sit on the boards of things. I submit myself for things. I'm constantly networking, meeting with and doing favors for people, and hope that they'll be, for me in return. I try to keep in everybody's good graces because you can't work in a silo in this industry. You can. And if you just want to get like monetize just your own views and your YouTube views and like just do that, you can. But if you want to have influence and real power and the ability to open doors for people behind you, you kind of have to play the game and get in there and do the people stuff.
Jen, you made me remember something that's like perfect example for this. And to me, like, I think I've had enough of not speaking up. I think we all should, you know? And that phrase where like it takes very little to be called a difficult woman. I don't give a crap. Like I couldn't care less. Because I think us being shut up and like not speaking up has gotten us to where we are, like, which is like millions of years from like gender equality. Obviously, it's not our fault. It's been so many issues, but I was recently invited to come back to the World Travel Market conference in London, which you guys know is very well known. And Greether won the Travel Startup of the year before. So they invited me back to be at this panel. And of course, it was three other male founders and then a male moderator and me. I'm constantly in rooms where I'm the only woman of color, and blah, 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 blah. But like, we're at this stage and then the panel's going on. And like, this is like an audience of like almost 200 people, by the way. And if you have been to World Travel Market, you meet so many incredible executive women there. Like there's so many women who come to this conference, women like Juanita who like are decision makers at like incredibly large corporations. So they had no excuse of just having like just a male like panel. The panelist kept skipping me in questions. He literally kept skipping me and ignoring me. And then at the end, he was like, he like asked the question like you are doing right now, Vanessa, right? Like he asked the question and he said, "Oh, but Vanessa, if you can just keep it quickly, because we have to wrap up." But he had already skipped me twice, guys. So I grabbed the microphone, and this is recorded. You guys can go watch it on YouTube. I grabbed the microphone and I said, "No, and I'm gonna respond to the other two questions that you didn't let me, and I'm gonna take my time." And everybody was just like, "Whoa." And I did. I took my time and I responded to the other two questions. And then when I left, I was pissed. I was like, and of course, I heard, because after that we had an event. So I heard the mixed reviews. So many people were like praising me, like, "Oh my God, good job." So many people called me a bitch, obviously, because that's what they label women. It is a reality, right? But then the organizers came to me after and they said, the year when I competed and we won, like the travel company of the year, it was just men as well. And I came to the organizers and I said, "Why did you only have men here?" "Oh, because someone canceled last minute." Now this year again, you only have men, and you have this guy who completely is skipping me from questions. I was like, this is unacceptable. Guys, they sent me a huge letter apologizing, and they invited me to like go to the to another event to be a speaker, so like, and I'm not gonna go, to be honest, completely transparent. But it takes us speaking up, and it takes us being labeled bitches, it takes us being called drama queens or whatever, or like, or me not getting invitations again because I was difficult. But I think it's enough. Like, we look at who is in charge like right now. It's enough of not speaking up. And if they call me a difficult Latina, I don't care, because if that's gonna open doors to Jen or Flavia or you, Vanessa, to be in that room next year, that I did a great job of being a bitch. So that's my 5 cents mic drop.
I'm so glad you told us that story, Vanessa, because I feel like we all like have experienced that moment in our own, you know, spaces and places before. And like my mom, one thing about a Latina mom is she is going to return the shirt that does not fit. Like she's not going to leave it in the bed. She's not, or like if that plate was not what she ordered, she's going to return it. Like no se va a quedar calladita and like say like, oh, I'm okay. I'm good having this like meal that I didn't order. Like if my Uber Eats comes, I'm always like sweating because I'm like, I please have the right order, because if not, my mom will make me put the thing on Uber Eats. Like they didn't include the ranch sauce to the lemon pepper rings. Like you need your refund. I think that it's funny, but that's culture, that's behaviors that we should take into consideration when we are experiencing those kinds of degrading moments. And we need to be able to speak up when we aren't being given a voice, especially and most specifically right now. And fear is a tactic that is winning, and it should not win. And the way that we use our power and influence to attack fear is by keeping our voices alive. And it's by bringing perspective and understanding to people about our communities. It's co-creating spaces of belonging. Like all of us want to belong to something that's greater than us. Like I often tell people, I'm not a Lakers fan. I know that there's some like California people, maybe LA, maybe you are, Vanessa. I don't know. I never really watched the NBA. But when Kobe Bryant passed away, him and his daughter, I was mourning. It's sad as a mom, as a sister, as just a US, as a citizen, as a person, as a human, you feel catastrophic emotions, because that was tragic. And hopefully we can bring proximity to what those experiences look like for people that don't necessarily live in the same experiences that our community is a part of. And the only way that can happen is for you to open the door and have those conversations with your manager. And it doesn't have to be with someone who's like more junior than you, or with no, actually it probably has more power when you have it with people that are higher than you, or that are in decision making positions, because that's when you widen the perspective in a way that is going to drive impact. And I think Anna is on the call, one of my Delta colleagues, and we have these conversations all the time because it's important for her to be very vocal about her experience as an immigrant at Delta in this moment with her boss, who particularly doesn't have that experience. So I think like that is how we make change. That's how we drive impact, and that's how we bring, a level of understanding and proximity to who we are as Latinas in the workforce.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna just ask a question that Paula just asked on the chat because it's so like important in this moment. She said, we just heard we need to work with others, but I also agree that we need to stand up for ourselves. Is there a way to balance the two?
I think if I can jump in, I think you have to know which battles to fight. Like for me in that moment, they've done it to me twice, and like I knew that I needed to speak up. And like it wasn't like a statement that I planned, but I just felt like I was completely being ignored. And like after I shared my founding story of my company, the guy literally said, "Oh, that must have taken a lot of cojones for you guys to build this company." And I was like, "I don't have cojones, you idiot." And I think that that was a battle that I decided to take. But for example, on my end, I have investors that I also need to protect, and I need to be smart about what I do as a company. I cannot just do bullshit, you know. I cannot jump in every little thing that political that's happening in the world because we're too small to like fight against that. So I think you have to know where and why you want to speak up, and like why sometimes it's better to stay quiet. You know, there is moments where you should stay quiet, and that's fine, because if that's going to protect the integrity of your business, or that's going to protect, you know, a potential revenue generation partnership that you really need, you know, like I think that that's where you can balance them. That's just my take.
I think the
Thank you
only thing
very
I would
much.
add to that would be to find an ally. So to avoid being labeled that crazy Latina, find somebody who actually does know you and knows that you are not that, and finds and make those allies in powerful places. Because I definitely know that that stereotype can come across, especially when you stand up for yourself. So having somebody who's like, no, actually, she's not crazy. No, this is like a legit person. So that's why, again, having those networks help, but find that ally and use that ally to help you wherever possible in these spaces. And you have allies in us here today.
Yeah, I would say be strategic in the battles that you pick. And I mean, don't allow disrespect for sure, but there's a lot of power in the way that you deliver messaging. I mean, we've all heard it, right? It's not what you say, it's how you say it kind of thing. And entonces, like, it's the truth, right? Like, I can see, I'll use a very simple example. When I'm talking to my daughter, Sol, who is 4 years old, with a specific tone, and I tell her to brush her teeth, she doesn't listen. But when I change my tone and I make it like a serious request, she is like, run into the bathroom. So I think that's similar. Like, do you want people in your workspace or your vendors or whatever to see you as somebody who is going to express their opinions in a way that is strategic? Or do you want to be like the squeaky wheel? Because there's that squeaky wheel. You should be able to express your ideas and your concerns, most definitely, but in a way that still positions your intellect and your value versus like complaining.
Thank you so much for sharing. And now this is the last question. Let's look ahead. 5 years from now, what will real progress look like for women and Latinas specifically, shaping the future of travel?
I would hope more women at the top level, more women who are decision makers, and hopefully, right? Like I think that it is our right, and we need to continue paving the path and opening doors, and like, or making our own tables, right? Like literally, because you know, Vanessa, for example, this community that you created, the events that you host, how can we amplify the ones who are coming after, you know, like and who are shaping, you know, our industry. And like there's a lot of hopefully voices that will be able to be um seen more, and we're gonna need a lot of like really original and authentic content as we navigate AI, and as the decision makers of AI building take, you know, these decisions of like how they're gonna restrict it, how what the legislations are, like they really haven't figured that out. And we have to be prepared for that. So hopefully in the future we'll have people at the top decision making where we can feel protected and like inspired by.
Yeah, I agree. I think if 20% of our population is Latino, like, why is 1% of our Latinas represented at the C level, that is a huge gap. And and again, I'm speaking from a corporate perspective, but also it takes Latinas to get into those positions with this ecosystem of Latina creators, Latina media in the media, Latinas in the entertainment industry, Latinas in tech, Latinas in entrepreneurship, to build a system. And I think that for us to be like, not think about it from a fish perspective, but like, what is wrong with the groundwater of the lake? We need to really just join forces and keep having these types of conversations, because that's where connections are made. That's where influence is made. Again, connecting it back to travel, that's where you're inspired. I was in I was on vacation with my daughter the other day, and it was whale season, and we saw like a massive whale jump out of the water, and I was so inspired. And in that moment, this solution to a problem at work that I had been trying to crank out for at least 8 months just like instantly came to my mind. I literally like voice noted it to myself. And so I think there's beauty in finding inspiration in things that have nothing to do with it. But we have to be really like intentional on creating those spaces and putting yourself out there, and not just going to the networking event, but like following up with people, checking in with those individuals who gave you their cards that are interested in you. And I know it's hard. Networking it takes time, but eventually that one person lands you that book deal or that brand partnership or whatever, and that's how we help each other.
Yeah, I mean, I think progress is inevitable, and I think maybe that's what helps me have a little bit of a perseverance mindset through all of these challenges, because we are the largest minority in the US. We have Hispanic students like graduating college in droves, going to graduate schools. Like, there's no denying this tidal wave that's coming of just like Hispanics taking over. And so I think progress would look like the ability to feel safe in one's skin, the ability to be able to speak Spanish proudly, even Spanish being the second official language of like the US. I know that now we have it like signed and there's no official language except for executive orders. I think it would be great if we had two official languages and Spanish was one of them, and everybody learned Spanish because it's such a useful language and so many countries speak them, right? And how cool would it be if we weren't the only like monolingual people in the world in the US? So I think progress looks like just stop denying the Spanish people and just accepting that it's here and it's here to stay. And I think that that's inevitable, again, just because of numbers. I think that what we're seeing now is just a push of a dying system where people just want things to stay the same in so many ways for so many things. And I think that there's growing pains as we outgrow that, but I think we are ultimately moving into this more beautiful, inclusive world where hopefully our culture can be openly celebrated, where our accomplishments can be openly lauded, where we can be seen across travel and media, easily, frequently, seeing people that reflect us and our values. So that would be progress to me, and I think it's coming. I think that's what helps me stay afloat above all of this, because I'm just like, it feels like a temper tantrum of like an old system, and we just gotta wait for the temper tantrum to be over, and then we'll just move on to like this wonderful world where everything is as we want it to be, and where these travelers are able to share their knowledge and their culture and really be appreciated for it.
Yes, and I think it's just then a matter of time.
Mhm.
We are almost there. Like I can feel it in my heart and in my soul. And I asked in the chat, what is one insight that you're taking away from tonight's conversation? And I'm going to share mine first because I want to answer it too. For me, it's like taking out space in my full Latinidad. Like and not only I'm a Spanish teacher, but I travel with my students. I also travel with my husband, and I travel solo. I'm building this movement, this community, Latino World Travelers, giving space to our community to come together as one and learn from each other, network with one another, and just feeling proud of where I come from. Like I'm very Dominicana, but I'm also like very Americana, I'm very immigrant at the same time. And I just want to embrace all of that. All that makes me. So thank you, all of you, for being here. And if you have anything that you want to share, any last insights that you want to close with, or where can people find you as well, even though I've shared it everywhere, but you can share that here as well. This is our closing for you to share.
I appreciate this space, Vanessa, and had the pleasure of meeting you in person. And I hope that I can meet any of you in person as well one day. With Greether, I don't think I've ever envisioned what it would turn out to be like, and it's the most beautiful part about having built Greether has been the people that I've met through it, like, and the connections that I've been able to build. And like some of the friends that I made like through Greether even came to my wedding, and like that's just like people who like will stay with me even beyond what I do with my company. And I think that right now we need that human connection as much as possible. We're all on our phones constantly all the time, but that like interactions can still happen virtually, like where we're having right now. And like there's ways that we can make space for that, and giving back. I think try to give more than you take, always. And for all of you who are here today, if you ever want to reach out or ask me a question, or like if there's any way I can support you or help, you can find me really easily. My email is vanessa@greether.com. I'm on LinkedIn as Vanessa Karel, and I read almost every DM that comes through Greether as well. So, or my team can pass them to me. So, but feel free to stay in touch, and I can't wait for the next conversation that we have.
Yeah, I'll echo that. I just want to say thank you to Vanessa for putting this space together. Thank you for all of you for attending, for being here with us an hour of your evening. Thank you to Juanita and Vanessa. Vanessa, I will never forget I feel like I was picturing you as Miss Universe, but like at World Travel Market, having your moment of like advocating for women everywhere. So I love that. And I love that you're both from Mexico. So like, just love Mexico so much. It's one of my favorite places. So just thank you all. And I think if you're somebody that's feeling like kind of lost in this space, the creator space, the travel journalist space, just know that we are here, that there are opportunities to be seen. I'm happy to help anybody with some recommendations. I know that Robin mentioned here, wanting to be active. I'm happy to help with any recommendations of orgs to join, conferences to attend, activities going on. So feel free to reach out. We are here for you. That's why we put on events like this. So hopefully you can ask questions and get all the insider knowledge. But you're not alone, and we're all in the same boat. So thank you for being here, and thank you for hosting.
Yeah, I echo the same sentiment. Every time that I'm in a space with Latinas, I literally like just go and bathe my daughter with so much energy, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm just like, "I know that there's a future generation of women who are going to lift you up." And she's like, "Okay, but that's what this is about. It's literally about building the women who are going to lift the future of our community. And I want to make sure I like read some of the messages that are in here before we log off. Sara Vasquez said, "What stood out to me tonight was the power we have within ourselves to keep moving forward, even when everything isn't perfectly clear." And I think that's really cool. And Robin said, "What I haven't heard is nothing new. Networking is everything." And I think we all kind of echo the same sentiment. And then Anna, thank you for joining. That is so special. She said it applies for all corporate employees. So my last two would be also join like Latinos in aerospace. Find some of those organizations outside of whatever your industry is that is connected to whatever industry you're trying to get into. So if travel and aviation, I would recommend joining Latinos in aerospace, Latinos in aviation, subscribing to news channels and like media newsletters that keep you informed around the aviation industry. There's actually a large part of my job is around regulatory affairs and government affairs, and even just like what's happening right now with TSA employees and the way that impacts our travel industry and our employees. We literally had just announced that we were launching a route to Riyadh in October. And so you can imagine takes a whole different perspective and business change after a really large investment. So make sure you keep informed of what's happening in the news and the way that it impacts your the space that you work in. I dropped my links for LinkedIn and Instagram in the chat. I love connecting with people from all different places. I think there's no coincidences and there's always value for both of us. So feel free to drop a note, and I'm happy to meet you all. And thank you for spending this time. Vanessa, I'm so grateful for your invitation.
Thank you so much to you all for being here. And if tonight this conversation resonated with you, this is the kind of dialogue that we host in our community, Latino World Travelers, and why I created this community so we can keep convening and coming together. So please, I'm gonna share here, right, my shameless plug, like they say. Join our membership. Our casita is a community of travelers and creators and industry professionals. And my goal is to keep growing it so we can continue coming together as a community. So if you want to continue these conversations, sharing insights, building those connections across this travel ecosystem, please feel free to join us. The more the merrier, like they say. We would love to welcome you and be part of this. Thank you so much. And now I am going to share some closing thoughts. I hope that everyone who was here tonight literally walks away with what this is power. Power does not live in just one place, as we just witnessed here. It lives in systems, it lives in stories, in platforms, in professional ecosystems, in community like the ones that we are all building. And we heard tonight is that shaping the future travel requires all of it. It requires all of us. It requires our allies. It requires the people that are in power. It requires that we are not calladita anymore, right? So the future of travel is not about visibility alone. It's about the decision making, the access to opportunities that we can provide our children, like Jen mentioned, the kids and my students when I travel with them, right? Juanita, the people that you meet and that you bring along. Vanessa, the people that you put in your platform to offer those great services to, so we can feel safe when we're traveling. And if we get this right, we're truly aligning that influence with intention. And the industry cannot any longer not make us visible. Like we are pushing through no matter what. So this is how we make sure that the industry becomes more inclusive, and we all have una silla en la mesa, como dicen, right? So let's keep being smarter, let's keep being innovative, being global, being human, connecting with one another, and building all of this. Thank you to all of you speakers for your thoughtful responses. I'm like in awe that I was actually able to bring you all together in one panel. I This is like a dream. Thank you, and for your leadership in your sectors, in your areas. Thank you for the community for showing up tonight and being part of this conversation. And the future of travel is being shaped in real time, and it's us making it happen. So let's stay in motion and keep going. Thank you so much, everyone.
Gracias, Vanessa y todos. Buenas noches.
Buenas noches. Nos vemos.
Bye. Thank